we're going to start this chapter with the sequin vermicelli, which works very much like the bead and thread vermicelli, except that we're using a line of sequins. So the first type of sequin vermicelli you can have is a continuous overlapping line of sequins that just meanders about the area. It's a great way to fill a large area with some sort of embellishment without having to have it completely covered. I've done several bodices this way where there was a decorative neckline and then the rest of the body down to the hem was a large open vermicelli of particular kinds of sequins. It makes for a nice texture. And in a case like that, I would draw out a section of the squiggly lines and then just keep transferring that to the pattern so that each pattern piece of the garment has the same density of and complexity of the vermicelli as every other piece, so that it doesn't become dense in one and more open in another and much more visible, which you wouldn't see until you got the garment put together. So it's a very simple squiggly line of sequins, and it still is a vermicelli because it's not straight lines. Now, a second kind of vermicelli that we can do with sequins is similar to the open vermicelli with seed beads, in that we're going to see some of the thread. So we put on starting stitches as always. You start with a sequin, and then using a squiggly line, you add some space between that sequin and the next one with just the thread. So in this case, if the thread will show, so you want to either match the fabric to the thread to the fabric, or you can use a metallic thread and add a little bit of sparkle in between each of the sequins as well, and that helps to give a little bit more bling to the area. Again, it's a squiggly line, and nothing is going in straight lines, and it's just another way to fill an area that's not quite as dense as the full line of sequins, but just gives a slight sort of background texture to the area or to the motif. Now, like with seed beads, you can do this with the sequins close to each other. So that's what I'm working on here now. I've transitioned from a more open sequin vermicelli to a closed vermicelli, which is still a squiggly line of one sequin at a time. Rather close, trying not to overlap them. And in some cases, there is a stitch in between each sequin so that they don't overlap, but they come fairly close together. That's just a third way of making a background of sequins. Each design can have a little bit of everything. You can go from a full line to the closed single sequin. This technique is really clever. This is applying one sequin on each side of the fabric with the same stitch, creating a reversible pattern that has no right side or wrong side. So the technique is, if you watch carefully, after I make this stitch here, I'm going to push one sequin up to the back. Once I find one, there they are, and I hold that one sequin in place. Now this is crucial to do that, so that you're also holding the loop of thread, because you have to take your hook out of the loop, pick up another sequin, drop it on, and then make your stitch. It's a little fidgety at first till your fingers get used to doing it, but once you get the hang of it, you can really move along quite quickly, and it allows you to create a design that has sequins on both sides. They can be the same size or different sizes. They can be the same color. So this is how it looks on one side. And on the other side, they're red sequins. And we'll see that when we get to the end of the video. You'll see the difference. One side is white, the other side is red. There's no good side, no wrong side, or right side. In this case, we're going to take sequins and stitch them as close as possible to a row of bugle beads. What that does is forces the sequins to sit up against the edge of the bugle bead so that they can't lie flat. It just gives a different textural effect and different light reflection. Sometimes they get a little fussy with bugle beads because the sequins will want to slide underneath. Don't panic about those. That can be fixed afterwards. You just have to massage them into place. But you'll notice that I'm taking the stitches just as close as I possibly can to that line of black thread, which is where the beads are stitched. And that's the whole point, because you want the half of the sequin to sit on the, or lean on the bugle beads. And it creates really interesting borders. You could also have sequins on each side of a row of beads, and then they sort of stand up against each other and create all kinds of textures. Now, when I finish an area like this, I will sometimes push with my thumb on the back side along the stitching line to try to coax the sequins onto the top of the beads while I'm pushing against the edge of the sequins underneath. That generally will pop them into place, but sometimes you have to wait till you turn it over and get in there with tweezers and just massage them. They don't happen to do that on seed beads. Bugle beads do tend to want to catch them. So here's how the vermicelli looks. Here we have the single line of sequins just meandering about the space, and it does work up very quickly. And then on the other side, you can see the open vermicelli with the thread in between. So I had a white thread on a white background. Whenever I do this, I really like to use either a silver or gold metallic thread, and it just adds another little sparkle to the sequins. And then as they come down here, they get closer together and are more densely filling the space. So these three different ways of putting on sequins to cover large areas that are not necessarily a pattern. And here are the double-sided, one of my favorite things to do. You can see underneath it's white, and on the top it's red, or at least on this side it's red, on the other side it's white. If you had two different size sequins, you would see the shadow of the bigger one through the smaller one, through the fabric to the smaller one. Here the sequins leaned up against the beads. The camera angle doesn't show it real justice, but they're sort of definitely leaning on the side of that so that there is some height.